Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by 3 Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for coffee and conversation.
Well, welcome, everybody. We are living in very interesting times, and I know it's a challenge to everybody, and we hope that these podcasts will help a little bit. Today, in fact, I think we're going to get both philosophical and practical about, what's going to happen in the road ahead here as we maybe start to loosen up a little, and is it coming back, all those sort of things. But I want to start with a quote, however, that puts it all into perspective, and this quote's from Joshua Lederberg, and he was a Nobel Prize winner in medicine at the age of 33. And his quote is that the single biggest threat to man's continued dominion of the planet is the virus. So we know that even in this last 10, 15 years, we've seen viruses as the major infectious threat. But our entire history as humans, we were always under the threat of infectious disease. And I get to see it from the perspective of my lifetime, because when I was very young, vaccines first came out. The first one was against polio, but then came measles, mumps, and we began to get in front of all these viral diseases, and then more and more antibiotics came. And so during my life and my medical training and my medical practice, infectious disease was not a major killer of people. It was chronic disease and those sort of things. And that was very atypical compared to how we have been as humans. So it's only been fairly recently did we get this idea that we were in control of infectious disease. So what this is in the last couple decades, as we had Ebola, and we had bird flu, and we had HIV, and we have this one, all viruses, all major threats. And that quote from a Nobel Prize laureate, I think, puts it into perspective that this is a big deal. So this is probably the first major assault. Major. I mean, all HIV and everything was certainly very important, but most of us felt that if we didn't live a certain lifestyle, we weren't going to get it. And this is a major threat to, I think, the entire species. And I think probably the first one in my lifetime, at least. But so very similar to how we have been. So it's a big deal. It's a shock. It's a wake up call. And I'm hoping that we're going to respond. There's no way that I can, when this is over, go back to my life and put this in my rearview mirror and not be changed by it. And I've been thinking about what that means internally, but I think from a practical standpoint, the world's going to change too. So I was thinking maybe we could talk about that today. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I believe that life gives us challenges that have the potential to change us. And I think we're right in the middle of exactly that. It can help us take small steps to become who we were meant to be. That's my perspective. And I use perspective in my life so much. I think it's so powerful. And I use that to manage my mind. And it's a really great, quick fix for me.
That's why you're a great coach, and that's why I listen to you a lot.
I'm so glad. We think about how much has changed, and my mind, I guess I've trained my mind, it immediately goes to what hasn't changed. For me, I haven't lost my job. I don't have to worry about making ends meet. Don't have to go to work and potentially expose myself and my family. I've not lost a loved one to this virus. I don't even know anyone who's sick. So I'm not changed in such significant ways. And that gives me such insight, into my position. I certainly have changed, though. I hope that this situation changes me and nudges me toward that person that I can become. And one thing I, have really learned and spoken about is the power of equal airtime. So limiting those inputs of the news, which our brain interprets as fear, really limiting those inputs into my brain and flooding it instead with all the things that are good for me, and always managing that balance. So that's a life lesson. It's pandemic lesson for sure, but it's also a life lesson.
Well, that's just perspective.
It is perspective. Yeah. I think it's also, for all of us, it's been a lesson in how much is outside of our control. And yet within us, we have such complete control. And for me, that's where I want to spend my energy and my brain power.
Yeah, for me, it's I've interpreted as I think we've become less arrogant as humans, and me personally, about my place in the world and my own mortality. I think has come crashing down, as you see. I had it early on in the military, but then kind of forgot about it for a while. And you get older, you start to think about it. But this is a massive boost to my consciousness of my own mortality and about how I'm going to live my life. So it's a big deal.
Well, I think you've had 9 lives or more, Roger. So maybe it's appropriate. You've seen that meme that says my guardian angel is quit and is now in therapy. I don't know. You may have a couple in therapy. I'm just saying. Yeah. And I don't know if it was arrogance, but in public health, when I studied public health, I learned about pandemics like everybody else, but I kind of filed it away in the folder called history. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know if that was arrogance. I guess it is a form of it can't happen to us.
Well, I was trying to allude to that as I talked about what has happened in my lifetime, even in medical school. I mean, they were almost historical. I mean, there's nothing that we learned about how to handle a pandemic because we just didn't expect one.
That's right.
Because we had conquered the virus, the bacteria. We were the king of the hill here, and so it's been. And hearing these young doctors. Caring for these people, particularly the young people who go from healthy to dead within days, that it is shocking for them in their medical lifetime.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I think another good thing that I'm taking away from this, and it's a pandemic thing, but it's just another life thing, is I'm willing to let my brain consider that worst case scenario that you just mentioned. I think the more we run from that, the more it chases us around. But I'm also going to ask my brain then to ask more of my brain and to be creative and to ask what can go right and to ask what value I can create in the world and what new thoughts I can think too. So I think if we have low expectations of our brain, it's going to spin in the worst case scenario, but we can also have very high expectations of our brain. Yep, it can happen. And what else can happen? Like equal airtime again. Yeah,
I agree. I think that with all the horror and all the pain and suffering, both illness-wise as well as financial and otherwise, loneliness, that there is the possibility of good from this, depending upon how we look at it. If you look at it as kind of a half full, despite the fact that it is horrible, that there's very positive things. Our positive psychology lady, I bet you have something to say about that.
Yeah, and I love the conversation. I didn't want to jump in because it was so good. I like what you said about, every time you think that you've outsmarted nature comes back and says, no, you haven't. And I love Teresa's comments about how not to live in fear, how to maintain the perspective and choosing where you're going, what rabbit hole you're going to let your mind go down or not go down. So good things. For me and for many of the people I've been speaking with, either friends or in a coaching environment, it's been a time of really deep personal growth, which I appreciate. I value the lesson because we have the luxury of being safe and feeling financially secure. Like Teresa, knock on wood, we're healthy. And so that we can take it as a time to look at and develop our relationships, our emotional awareness. We've become a lot more flexible. I think it's almost like a magnifying glass on emotions and my internal self. So if I'm grateful for things, which I typically am, I feel more grateful and more appreciative and focusing on the positive. But if there's that dark side that's unhappy or complaining, that gets magnified too. So it's really given me the opportunity to look at some of the stuff that maybe I don't want to keep in my personality and kind of work on them. But the biggest thing, two big things I would say that I'm taking away from it is I'm noticing how people are contributing around me to help each other and to be there for each other. I want to do more of that. But I'm also recognizing as having that personality of wanting to save, and I know a lot of people who are very similar, that if there's a problem, they want to fix it. Well, this is a pandemic. We can't fix it alone as one individual. We have to work together. And so it's really called to light how my actions, your actions, and everybody's actions affect one another. And I think the last thing, I've been really focusing on my sense of purpose and how I want to be spending my time and who I want to be spending it with, and things that maybe are not going to make the cut, which needed to, and it took a pandemic to bring that to light.
Yeah, well said. Well, it's been a massive shared experience, as I said. And that's unlike anything any of us have experienced, really. Maybe there was a massive shared sentiment, say, to 9/11. Didn't really last long, and we weren't threatened. We weren't, in the thick of it. We were emotionally assaulted. But this is a little bit different, and it is so widespread. So for me, yeah, like I said, I refuse to not be changed by this. I would feel like I have lost not only an opportunity, but that the universe spoke to me and I didn't listen. And I just can't do that. Maybe it's a little, Pollyanna or something to say that, but I do feel. And so I'm along the lines of both of you. I'm feeling that I'm going to be much more compassionate with people, tolerant of people, because we're all in this together. We really are. And I'll see myself as part of a bigger, larger whole, because going through this with Italians and Australians and Chinese and Americans, it can't help but feel that. And I think lastly, I think whatever I do, I usually have an internal judge for whatever you do. You're doing it for this reason or this reason. And unfortunately, most of us go through because we feel this will make our lives better. And occasionally we want to help someone else, but we just want to, this is for us. Well, I think I'm more than likely going to be judging my actions by their relationship to the greater good more than ever. Because we all are in this together, not only with this disease, but just on this planet, and the actions of one. And maybe it's not, I don't want to be, sort of grandiose and think that my actions change anything in China, but in some ways they do, say with climate or those sort of things. So anyway, I think that's a little bit how I'm going to do. You guys along the same line, aren't you?
Absolutely. And one of the things I've been thinking about too is taking those lessons and not reverting to the old habits. Like when you go on a great vacation and you relax and you say, I'm going to relax more often and I'm going to approach work with the same level of euphoria, whatever. And then 5 minutes into your workday, you've suddenly forgotten. Well, I don't want to forget. I want to take the lesson. So, for me, it's going to be something simple. If there's something I want to remember, I'm going to write it on my calendar on certain days to kind of check in. How are you feeling? How are you doing with these areas that you said you were going to work on? And I know Teresa, before this call, had some thoughts, and I was going to pass it back to her and hope that she could share some of her thoughts about that.
I think it's really easy to go back to normal in our own lives quickly and kind of have amnesia for the lessons that we wanted to learn. And I think it goes back to what's the why? What's your compelling why for wanting to do things differently? And, defining that and then revisiting that daily. That's how we renew our motivation. And, for me, even though so much of my work in the past 2 decades has been with older people, in my weekly, activities and planning, I haven't made a habit of picking up the phone and checking in with people who are dear to me. And I've been doing that. And that's definitely something that I will continue to do. And I know many other people are doing the same. I think it's a great opportunity for us as a society to reach out to people who maybe are isolated due to this pandemic or in general. We have such a problem with isolation across the world, not only in our own country. Just to check in with and be a friend to people. And really the benefits are go both ways, maybe even more so toward me. But
you benefit even more. Yeah, we know that in our lifestyle and aging, healthy longevity. We do know that, how important social connection is now, but we have to do it creatively now, but we still have to do it. Well, it's almost getting to be a cliche, to get up and be grateful. But I think that's such a powerful thing to do to every day. Maybe even if it's just one thing or something or a couple things, but what you're grateful for. Certainly this particular episode, this COVID-19 assault has given us a lot to be grateful for, I believe. And so I'm going to continue to try to remember that and be grateful for what it is, and certainly be grateful for my connections to other humans. Because I've said this before, having been at the deathbed of a lot of people, it's never about events or what they achieved in life. It was about relationships and their social connections and love. So that was that's really what matters in the end. So, well, I don't know. That's a good place to leave it, I guess. Perhaps in the as we move along in this event and we get started closer to really more widespread moving out of our homes and out into the society, we can give some advice and some observations regarding what life will be like out there.
Absolutely. It's a brave new world. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.